emotional exercise. It really didn't work, and I'm really nervous. So, I'm feeling okay. I'm happy to be here. Okay. So, yeah, I'm going to start with who I am. And there was a really nice font, and it's not there anymore, so you're just going to have to bear this one. So, I'm 27 years old. I live in Berlin currently. I studied sustainable development at the Uni of Edinburgh. And I've had my blog for 6 years now. And that sort of documented my big passion for fashion. Yeah, as I was studying, I got interested in the concept of sustainable fashion because obviously these are the two things that are close to my heart. It's the sustainability and fashion, and that's why I 2 years ago I already started thinking about starting my own label. Yeah, as if there weren't enough, of course, but it's just what I want to do, so I'm doing that now, and I launched my own shop in February. Yes. So, why I'm here today is to tell you something about how fashion is today and what we can change about it because it's not quite functioning properly. Right. It's the second biggest polluter in the world, and it produces more greenhouse gas emissions than the aviation industry and the shipping industry combined. Right. Fashion still operates very much as a linear system, so that means the clothing gets produced, then we consume it, we wear it once, twice, 10 times. And then it gets discarded. That's not really good for the environment. Right. Yeah, and this discarded clothing, as you can see over there, it's very weird, but it actually travels around the world, and sometimes it ends up right where it started. So, for example, China this year they banned the import of our discarded, I say our, it's like the Western world. They banned the import of the discarded clothing. Also, next year, African countries, some of them will ban this. It's because it's undercutting the local textile industry, basically. So that's not really good for the environment. And also, when they're banning this import, it also means that even more of this discarded stuff gets incinerated, so basically burned. And that's how the greenhouse gas is released as well. Yeah, in fashion, the supply chain is really long. So what that means is that from the let's say cotton fields, from the crops, then it gets made into cotton, and then somebody has to dye it, somebody has to make the clothing, then somebody has to ship it, and blah, 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 blah. It goes on. So it's very hard for the actual consumer to know where the clothing came from, who made it, under what conditions, and what basically happened. Right, so that's a problem, obviously. Fashion is an industry that works also, as many other industries, around this race to the bottom thing. And what that means is that clothing has never been cheaper. Why is it so cheap? It's because somebody's paying for it. And that's bad. And it's not fair. And what's the answer to all this? It's the ethical fashion. So what is that? It's based on circular economy. So instead of discarding the clothes at the end of their life, it shouldn't be the end of their life. It should keep going. So you don't discard the clothing. You either mend it or you can give it to somebody else, or you can make it into something else. And I'm going to talk about that as well later. Ethical fashion should also mean empowerment. So instead of exploiting the people who make the clothes, you should empower them. So they should be paid fairly, they should work under fair circumstances. Innovation is very important. So new technologies are quite crucial when it comes to ethical fashion, or making fashion more ethical. There are new technologies. I'm going to mention a few because I find them quite interesting. So in fashion, it's important to utilize the waste, and how this is done, for example. So recently there's been this new development or new initiative, and you can actually make textile from orange peels or milk or algae. And they're normal textiles. Some of them even have nice qualities, like they have low flammability, and they're better breathable on the body than the artificial ones, like polyester, for example. So that's great. Also, so did you know that when you wash your clothes and they're made out of artificial textiles, so when you wash them, they release these tiny little artificial things, and then they get into the greywater system, and that's how they get to the ecosystem, and they pollute it as well. So for example, there's a Berlin startup, and they make this bag called the Guppy bag, and you put your stuff in it when you wash, and it catches the microfibers. So, for example, there you can see it. Yeah, more of the innovation. So it sort of seems like a straightforward solution to automate it. So if people are getting exploited, then why not just have machines make the clothes? Well, it's not really that simple. It is happening, sort of, but it's still not on a global scale. It's being experimented with. And what you can see here is it's a factory in Germany. It's called the Speed Factory, and the first pair of sneakers, of Adidas sneakers, was made there entirely by a robot. Yeah, what is also important, as I was speaking in the previous slide about the long supply chain, so ethical fashion is also built around transparency. So the better the company can explain where the clothes came from, the more ethical it makes it. And also, if you're going to tell somebody how the clothes are made, it better be something that you are not ashamed to say, right? Yes. So what is ethical fashion? It's handcrafted, it's sustainable, it's fair, local, transparent, empowering, vegan, and it produces minimal waste. I could go in detail about all of them, but I'm not going to do that. I'm going to give you a great resource. It's called Fashion Revolution, and it's an organization that deals with raising awareness about ethical fashion. They also rank brands according to how they perform this ethical manner. Yeah, and they also have a great zine. It's called the Fanzine, and they explain more about ethical fashion if you're interested to know more. Yeah, so upcycling is what I deal with and what I do. And what is it then? It's not recycling, because recycling actually breaks down the material into the smallest parts, and usually the smaller parts are of lesser quality. Upcycling, on the other hand, it's the process of converting something old or something discarded into something useful and something usually awesome. Here you can see a brand from Berlin. The denim bra is made out of old jeans that had holes. And now it's this funky piece. On the other picture, it's another Berlin brand called GmbH. And the jacket that you can see, it's made out of other old jackets. So there's this myth around upcycling or repurposing that it necessarily has to look a bit DIY or shabby, which is really not the case. You can see that you can look really so elegant in it, and it can look very finished. But basically you're wearing some old jackets that somebody didn't want. Right, so this is about me. I do this kind of stuff. I am a self-taught designer and a tailor. I've been teaching myself for the past 2 years to sew and to design. I use secondhand materials to produce pieces. So in the picture on the right, I'm holding this piece of fabric, and it's actually a secondhand bed sheet. So I get them in a secondhand, and then I just process them. So like what I'm wearing today, it's also used to be a bed sheet.
Wow.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm drawn to these. I call them the tacky Asian bed sheets, because somehow in the Slovak secondhands, they're really, people love this shit, obviously, and I love to make stuff from that, because it's sort of, yeah. And I was talking to a girl, she's in the audience, and she actually told me that these signs, they don't really have that much meaning, and they don't really make that much sense when they're together. And that made me really happy, because I was kind of worried I didn't want to offend anybody with, I don't know, something horrible that it says. I'm really not that ignorant. I don't know how to find out what they mean. I tried Google Translate, but it didn't really give me anything. So. Yeah. The other dress is made out of a tablecloth. So it's a brand of cigarettes, and obviously I think it was just laying there in a pub, and people were spilling on it, and then I made it into this dress. And I remember a party in this dress, and somebody spilled on me, and I was like, oh, it's okay. It's meant to be spilled on. So, yeah, as you can see, you can make lots of interesting stuff from secondhand materials that would otherwise just lay there, or otherwise would just have a boring function. Right. Yes. And they're all unique, of course. There's just one of them. Right, I'm running out of time, so I'm just going to tell you some tips how to start thinking differently about clothing. So the first obvious one is obviously buy less. Second one would be do your own thing, but I know that we all have a job or something that we're doing, and we don't really have time to sit there for 5 hours making a jacket because winter's coming. So, right? So yeah, my tip for buying less. I've been doing this a lot. So try, if you're shopping online, try bookmarking this stuff, and then have a time in a month that you go through all your bookmarks and then see, okay, maybe I want this, maybe I don't really want this anymore. It's basically tackling this impulse buy that we're taught by the society to do. That's what's marketing about. It's basically, oh yeah, I need this, and then the next day you're like, I don't know, do I? But you just keep it. And then with clothes, it works like that. Then you just discard it, with barely wearing it. Maybe not. Yeah. Second one, choose local ethical labels. Like mine. No, actually, there's so many of them, and I feel like, really, if you're doing the first one, then you might have a little bit more to spend, because t-shirt actually doesn't cost €5. It's just the price, but it's not the value, and that's what's important. So by shopping at these local ethical labels, you're also supporting the startup scene, the people who, basically. Sorry. Also, not everybody's gonna have those clothes, so if you're interested in looking unique, then obviously go shopping in these smaller brands. Yes, extend the lifespan of your clothing by mending it. And I also have a tip for that. So there's millions of tutorials on YouTube about how you can mend your jeans, or how you can even hold a needle, because I know for some people that's a real problem. And what I really love about sewing is that it's a very mindful exercise. So if your life is stressful, then you can use that, you can fix your socks and just for 10 minutes, just not think about anything else but that. So it's sort of like a meditation. Yeah. Reduce your footprint by buying secondhand. That's very easy to do. It's probably the first thing after buying less that comes to your mind. And it's really great. In Bratislava, there's lots of really nice secondhands, and they have quality clothing, and it's super cheap. So you're already doing something when you're shopping there. Lastly, raise your own awareness, educate yourself. It's clothing. People think that you need to be interested in fashion to educate yourself about clothing, but it's really such a big part of our lives, what we put on ourselves, that it's like food. Now there's the vegan movement is booming, and that's great. But clothing is also a big part of our life and a big part of our eco footprint. So we really need to know what we're doing, what we could be doing better, how it's all connected. Yeah. And my last word for you would be, switching to ethical fashion might take some thought and some energy, but the health of the planet and its people depend on it.